The stars looked cold from the observation deck. Commander Jacob Price had been staring at them for almost an hour now, watching the darkness of space stretch out forever. Behind him, the computers beeped softly, monitoring everything that moved in the solar system. Earth hung below like a blue marble, peaceful and quiet. 300 years. That was how long humanity had been silent. 3 centuries since the war that changed everything. 300 years since Earth spoke to the galaxy and got violence in return. Jacob remembered the stories his grandfather told him. Stories about the First Contact War, when alien ships came to Earth with smiles and promises. They said they wanted peace. They said they wanted friendship. Then they saw what humans had, and they wanted to take it instead. The war lasted 6 months. Earth lost billions of people. Cities burned. Oceans boiled. When it was over, the aliens left, but they took something with them. Hope. They showed humanity that the galaxy was not kind. It was cruel and hungry, so Earth went quiet. No more radio signals. No more messages to the stars. The world pulled back behind its sun and disappeared from galactic view. The other species forgot about humanity. They thought Earth was finished, broken, maybe even dead. They were wrong. Lieutenant Katie Sullivan walked onto the observation deck carrying 2 cups of coffee. Her red hair was tied back in a tight bun, and her uniform was crisp and clean. She handed 1 cup to Jacob and stood beside him. "Still nothing on the sensors," she said, looking at the same stars he was watching. "The Council fleets are moving through Sector 7. They passed right by our detection range. Didn't even slow down." Jacob took a sip of the coffee. It was hot and bitter, just the way he liked it. "Good. That means the stealth systems are working," Katie nodded. "They think we're nothing. They think we're scared little humans hiding in the dark." "Let them think that," Jacob said quietly. "Fear makes you careful. Pride makes you stupid." Down on Earth, far below the clouds and cities, deep under the mountains of Colorado, Director Helen Barnes walked through a facility that did not officially exist. The tunnels stretched for miles, carved out of solid rock by machines that worked in silence. These were the secret places where humanity built its future. Helen was 57 years old, with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She had spent 30 years working on the Warhammer Initiative, the program that would change everything. Around her, thousands of people worked day and night, building weapons the galaxy had never seen before. She stopped at a window that looked down into a massive chamber. Inside, technicians swarmed over a ship that gleamed like silver ice. It was beautiful and deadly, a masterpiece of human engineering. Plasma railguns lined its hull. Quantum reactors powered its engines. AI systems ran through every wire and circuit. "How many more until we reach full production?" Helen asked the man beside her. Lieutenant Danny Foster checked his tablet. He was young, barely 25, with sandy blonde hair and quick fingers that danced across screens. "This makes ship number 297, ma'am. We'll hit 300 by next week. The shipyards at Saturn are ahead of schedule." Helen smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew a secret. 300 ships? The Council thinks we have maybe 50 old vessels, if that. They're going to be very surprised. Danny looked nervous. "Ma'am, there's something else. We just picked up a transmission. The Council has given permission to the Krelnor Empire. They're sending mining ships to the Kuiper Belt." Helen's smile vanished. The Kuiper Belt was still part of Earth's solar system. It was still human territory, even if the rest of the galaxy forgot that. The Council giving permission to mine there was like someone giving permission to rob your house while you were still inside. "How many ships?" Helen asked, her voice cold. 6 mining vessels. 20 escorts. They'll be here in 48 hours. Helen stood very still for a long moment. 300 years of silence. 300 years of waiting and building and preparing. The galaxy had pushed and pushed, taking more and more, thinking humanity was too weak to push back. "Send a message to Admiral Clark," Helen said finally. "Tell him to prepare the fleet. Tell him it's time to stop being quiet." Danny's eyes went wide. "Ma'am, are you sure? If we reveal ourselves now, if we fight them, the whole galaxy will know we're still here." "Good," Helen said. "Let them know. Let them see what we've become. 300 years ago, they beat us because we weren't ready. We were soft and unprepared. We trusted them and they burned our world. We're not that species anymore." She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the tunnel. Danny watched her go, then sent the message. Far out in the solar system, beyond the orbit of Saturn, Admiral Ryan Clark received it on the bridge of his ship. The ECS Retribution hung in the darkness like a sleeping giant. It was 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons powered by reactors that could light up a city. Around it, 299 other ships waited in the shadows, invisible to any sensors the Council had. Ryan Clark was 60 years old, with silver hair and a face lined by years of training for a war he thought might never come. He had been born 5 years after the First Contact War ended. He grew up in the ruins and the ash. He learned to fight so that no human would ever have to live through that again. "Captain Morgan," he said to the woman at the tactical station, "what's our status?" Lisa Morgan looked up from her screens. She was 42, with dark skin and darker eyes that could calculate firing solutions faster than most computers. "All ships report ready, sir. Crews are at 97% efficiency. Weapons are charged. Engines are hot. We can move in 60 seconds, Ryan nodded slowly. He thought about his children back on Earth. He thought about his wife, who worked in the underground farms that fed billions. He thought about every human being who had spent their lives building toward this moment. "Send a message to all ships," he said. "Tell them to prepare for combat operations. Tell them that Earth is done being silent. Tell them that humanity remembers what the galaxy did to us and we're not afraid anymore." Lisa smiled as she sent the message. Throughout the fleet, crews moved to battle stations. Pilots climbed into fighters. Gunners checked their weapons. Engineers primed the reactors. The Krelnor mining fleet jumped into the Kuiper Belt 2 days later. They came with confidence, secure in their council authorization. They had no idea they were being watched. They had no idea that humanity had been waiting for 300 years. They thought Earth was silent because Earth was dead. They were about to learn the truth. The Krelnor mining fleet appeared like ghosts emerging from nothing. One moment, the Kuiper Belt was empty and peaceful. The next moment, 26 massive ships materialized in flashes of blue light, their jump drives cooling as they entered normal space. Commander Vexthor stood on the bridge of the dominant Pride, watching the ice and rock of the Kuiper Belt spread out before him. He was 7 feet tall, covered in dark green scales with yellow eyes that saw in spectrums humans could not. His race, the Krelnor, had conquered 12 worlds. They were strong and proud. "Begin mining operations," Vexthor ordered, his voice a deep rumble. The translator device on his collar turned his words into something other species could understand. "These primitive resources will fuel our expansion. The Council was wise to grant us this territory." His second officer, a younger Krelnor named Saxil, looked uncertain. "Commander, the old records say this system belongs to the humans. Should we not scan for defenses?" Vexthor laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Humans, that broken species? They barely had space travel 300 years ago. The war destroyed them. If any survived, they are cowering on their planet, too scared to even send radio signals. There is nothing to fear here." The mining ships moved forward, their massive drills preparing to tear into the ancient ice. These were the frozen remnants of the solar system's birth, rich in water and minerals that the Krelnor needed. What Vexthor did not know was that 300 sensors were watching him. Satellites hidden among the rocks and ice had tracked his fleet from the moment they arrived. Every ship was counted. Every weapon was cataloged. And the data was already traveling back to the human fleet at light speed. Admiral Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. The Krelnor ships appeared as red dots on his screen, sitting right in the middle of human territory like they owned it. "Admiral," Captain Lisa Morgan said from her station, "we have complete targeting solutions on all enemy vessels. The fleet is ready to move on your command." Ryan looked at the display for a long moment. 300 years of silence. 300 years of hiding. In 60 seconds, all of that would end. The galaxy would know humanity survived. The galaxy would know humanity was strong. "Lieutenant Brooks," Ryan said quietly, "open a channel. Broadcast to the Krelnor fleet and to every ship, every station, every world in the galactic network." Andrew Brooks, the communications officer, was 28 years old and had trained his entire life for this moment. His hands shook slightly as he activated the transmitters. "Channel open, sir. Broadcasting on all frequencies." Ryan took a breath. Then he spoke, and his words traveled across space at the speed of light, reaching out to a galaxy that thought humanity was dead. "Attention, Krelnor fleet. This is Admiral Ryan Clark of the Earth colonial ship Retribution. You are trespassing in sovereign human territory. You have entered the Sol system without permission and are conducting illegal mining operations. You have 1 hour to withdraw beyond the heliopause. If you do not leave, you will be removed by force. This is your only warning." On the dominant Pride, alarm suddenly blared. Vexthor spun toward his communications officer. "What is that? Where is that signal coming from?" The officer's claws fumbled across his controls. "Commander, it's a human transmission. It's coming from inside the system, but our sensors show nothing." Vexthor stared at the empty space on his sensors. His pride would not let him believe what he was hearing. A human transmission? Impossible. This is a recording, something left over from before the war. Ignore it, continue mining, but his officers looked afraid now. Humans were legends among the younger species. Stories told to scare cadets. The species that fought against impossible odds. The species that would not surrender even when their world burned. Saxiel stepped closer to his commander. "Sir, perhaps we should scan more carefully." The transmission was very specific. They knew our species. They knew our position. "We are Krelnor," Vexthor roared. "We do not run from ghosts and old recordings. Continue the operation." Ryan Clark watched the countdown timer on his screen. 59 minutes. 58 minutes. The Krelnor were not leaving. He had not expected them to. Pride was a weakness that got soldiers killed. "All ships," Ryan said calmly. "Charge weapons. Prepare to drop stealth fields on my mark. Fighter squadrons launch when visible. Capital ships target their escorts first. We want their command ship intact if possible." Throughout the human fleet, 300 ships came alive. Reactors that had been running cool suddenly burned hot. Weapons that had been dormant for decades powered up. Fighter pilots climbed into their cockpits, their hearts racing with fear and excitement. Lieutenant Chris Palmer sat in his fighter, checking his systems for the 10th time. He was 31 years old, born and raised on Mars, trained to fly since he was 16. His squadron, the Ghost Riders, were the best pilots in the fleet. Today they would prove it. "Ghost leader to all Ghost Riders," Chris said into his radio. "Remember your training. These are not simulations anymore. This is real. Watch each other's backs and let's show the galaxy what human pilots can do." 9 voices answered him. Young men and women who were about to make history. The countdown reached 0. "All ships," Admiral Clark said, his voice steady as stone. "Drop stealth fields. Weapons free. Show them what we are." Space itself seemed to tear open. 300 ships materialized out of nothing, appearing in perfect formation around the Krelnor fleet. The stealth technology that had hidden them simply turned off, and suddenly the Krelnor sensors were screaming with contacts. Vexthor stared at his display in horror. Red icons filled his screen. Hundreds of them. Ships of sizes and designs he had never seen before. All of them had weapons pointed at his fleet. "How?" he whispered. "How is this possible?" His tactical officer shouted across the bridge. "Commander, they're targeting us." "Energy signatures are off the scale. Those weapons, I've never seen readings like this." "Shields up," Vexthor roared. "All ships combat formation. Return fire!" But it was too late. The humans had planned this perfectly. The Retribution fired first. Its main plasma railgun lit up space with a beam of superheated matter, moving at a fraction of light speed. The beam struck a Krelnor escort cruiser dead center. The ship's shields held for maybe half a second before collapsing. The beam punched through the hull like paper, and the cruiser exploded in a ball of fire. Then the rest of the human fleet opened fire. Plasma bolts streaked through space. Quantum torpedoes phased through shields and exploded inside hulls. Railguns threw projectiles with such force that they tore ships in half. The Krelnor fired back desperately, but their weapons were older technology. Standard galactic issue. Against human shields, they barely left marks. Chris Palmer launched from the Retribution's hangar, his fighter accelerating to speeds that would have killed an unprotected human. But his body was secured in a gel that absorbed the forces, and his mind was linked directly to his ship through neural implants. "Ghost Riders, form up on me," he ordered. "We're going after those mining ships. Don't let them escape." His squadron moved like a single organism, 9 fighters dancing through the battlefield with impossible grace. A Krelnor point defense system tried to target them, but they were too fast, too agile. Chris fired a quantum torpedo, watching it phase into existence right inside a mining ship's engine room. The explosion was beautiful and terrible. Captain Lisa Morgan coordinated the entire battle from the Retribution, her mind processing information faster than any computer. She saw patterns in the chaos, Weak points in the enemy formation. Second wave, focus fire on the command ship's engines. I want them disabled, not destroyed. Vexthor knew he was beaten. In 14 minutes, his fleet had been cut to pieces. Ships burned around him. His crew was dying. The humans, the species he thought was broken, were destroying everything he had. Retreat, he screamed. All ships, emergency jump. But his engines were already damaged. The human fire had been too precise, too perfect. The dominant pride went dark, power failing, tumbling through space. Ryan Clark watched the last Krellner ship explode. Not a single human vessel was even scratched. Cease fire, he ordered. Search and rescue teams, recover any survivors. Captain Morgan, secure the command ship. The Battle of the Kuiper Belt was over. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. Within 6 hours of the battle, every major world knew what had happened. Earth, the silent world, the forgotten species, had just destroyed a Council-sanctioned mining operation with overwhelming force. On the Council homeworld of Centrum Prime, 47 ambassadors gathered in emergency session. The Great Chamber was a massive dome that could hold thousands, built by the Archon species 10,000 years ago. Today it felt very small. Ambassador Korval of the Krellner Empire stood at the speaker's podium, his scales dark with rage. His voice shook the air as the translator converted his words. The humans have committed an act of war. They destroyed 20 of our ships, killed 3,000 of our people. This cannot stand. The Council must authorize immediate military action. The chamber erupted in voices. Some species agreed, calling for punishment. Others were silent, watching the battle recordings with growing concern. High Counselor Thane, an ancient being from the Archon Collective, raised one crystalline hand. The chamber fell silent. Thane was old. No one knew how old. His species lived for thousands of years, and he had been leading the Council for 6 centuries. His voice was soft but carried weight like a mountain. Ambassador Korval, Thane said slowly, your fleet entered the Sol system without contacting Earth. You began mining operations in their territory. By our own laws, they had the right to defend their space. The question is not whether they had the right. The question is how they won so completely. He activated the holographic display at the center of the chamber. The Battle of the Kuiper Belt played out in 3 dimensions. The Council members watched as human ships appeared from nowhere. They watched the precise, devastating attacks. They watched Krellnor vessels equipped with standard galactic military technology fall apart like toys. Those weapons, Thane continued, are not in our database. Those ships move with coordination we have never seen. Their stealth technology is beyond anything we possess. This is not the humanity we remember from 300 years ago. This is something new. A representative from the Valix Confederacy, a small insect-like species, clicked nervously. How is this possible? 300 years ago, they barely had fusion power. Now they have quantum weapons. Stealth fields that can hide entire fleets. Where did this technology come from? Thane looked at the data scrolling across his screens. They had 300 years of silence. We thought they were recovering. We thought they were broken. What if they were building instead? What if every year we ignored them, they were becoming stronger? Korval slammed his fist on the podium. It does not matter how strong they think they are. The Council has 800 warships from 6 different species. We will crush them. We will make them remember their place. Other voices agreed. The younger species, the ones who had never known defeat, called for war. But the older ones, the Archons and the Centauri and the Voidborn, they remained quiet. They remembered stories of species that looked weak but were not. They remembered the cost of pride. On Earth, in the underground facility beneath Colorado, Helen Barnes watched the Council proceedings through intercepted transmissions. The translators worked perfectly, converting alien languages into English. She listened to them debate, listened to them threaten, and felt no fear. Lieutenant Danny Foster stood beside her, looking worried. Ma'am, they're mobilizing their fleets. 6 different species. Our intelligence estimates 847 ships. That's almost 3 times what we have. Helen kept watching the screen. Numbers don't matter if your technology is inferior. One modern fighter jet could destroy 100 biplanes from World War I. We're not fighting an equal enemy, Danny. We're fighting an enemy that's 300 years behind us. But 800 ships, Danny said quietly. Let them come. Helen replied. Let them see what happens when you underestimate humanity. We survived their first attack because we learned to be hard. We learned to be smart. We learned that in this galaxy, strength is the only thing that matters. In orbit above Earth, Commander Jacob Price walked through the Guardian's watch station with Lieutenant Katie Sullivan. The station was a fortress, bristling with weapons, protected by shields that could withstand nuclear strikes. But even it seemed small compared to what was coming. "The Council fleet will be here in 72 hours, Katie said, checking her tablet. "Admiral Clark is pulling back all our ships to defensive positions around Earth. We'll make our stand here." Jacob looked out at the planet below. Billions of people lived down there. They went to work, raised their children, lived their lives. Most of them did not know how close war was. The government had not told them yet. "Do you think we can win?" Katie asked quietly. Jacob smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I think we're about to find out what we're really made of. 300 years ago we lost because we were soft. We trusted strangers. We believed in peace with people who only understood strength. We're not that species anymore." Down on the planet, in the cities and towns, life continued. But in the military bases, in the orbital stations, in the hidden shipyards around Saturn, humanity prepared for war. Every ship was checked and rechecked. Every weapon was tested. Every pilot ran simulations until they could fight in their sleep. Admiral Ryan Clark stood on the bridge of the Retribution, now positioned in high orbit above Earth. Around him, the entire human fleet had gathered. 300 ships, each one a masterpiece of human engineering. It looked impressive, but 800 ships were coming. Captain Lisa Morgan ran calculations on her screens. "Admiral, if they attack in standard formation, we can use Earth's gravity well against them. Force them to approach from predictable angles. Use the orbital defense platforms as force multipliers." Ryan nodded. "And if they're smart enough to split their forces, then we fight them in pieces," Lisa said calmly. "We can't be everywhere at once, but neither can they. The key is making them think we're stronger than we are." Lieutenant Chris Palmer and his squadron were running patrol routes around the moon. His fighter cut through space silently, sensors reaching out for any sign of the enemy. The waiting was almost worse than fighting. In battle, you were too busy to be scared, but waiting gave you time to think. "Ghost Leader," his wingman called, "do you really think they'll come, after what we did to the Krellnor?" Chris thought about that. "Yeah, they'll come. Pride is a powerful thing. They can't let one species stand against the whole council. If they back down now, other species might get ideas. They'll come, and they'll come hard." On Centrum Prime, the council session was ending. Corval had convinced enough species to authorize military action. 847 ships would jump to Earth. They would demand surrender. If Earth refused, they would attack. High Counselor Thane voted against the action, but he was outvoted. As the other ambassadors left, celebrating their decision, Thane remained in his seat. He pulled up the battle recordings again, watching the human ships move with perfect coordination. "What have we awakened?" he whispered to himself. His aide, a young Archon named Veltus, approached carefully. "Counselor, you seem troubled. The mathematics are clear. 800 ships against 300. The humans cannot win." Thane's crystalline body seemed to dim. "Mathematics assume equal capability. What if their 300 ships are each worth 3 of ours? What if their weapons can punch through our shields like they did to the Krellnor? What if we are sailing into a trap? Then what should we do?" Veltus asked. "We prepare for the possibility that we are wrong," Thane said. "We prepare for the possibility that humanity is not the weak species we remember. And we hope that pride does not destroy us all." On Earth, Helen Barnes received confirmation that the Council fleet was coming. She walked to the communications room and activated the system that would broadcast to every human on the planet and in the colonies. "People of Earth," she began, her voice calm and steady. 300 years ago, the galaxy came to our world and showed us its true face. It was violent and cruel. We survived but barely. Since that day, we have prepared for this moment. The Council is sending a fleet to punish us for defending our territory. Let them come. We are not the same species we were. We are stronger. We are ready, and we will show them that humanity does not break. We do not surrender. We fight." Across Earth and the colonies, billions of people heard her words. Some were scared. Some were angry. But all of them understood. The silence was over. The hiding was over. Humanity was going to war, and this time they would not lose. The Council fleet emerged from their jump at Earth's heliopause, the invisible boundary where the sun's influence faded into interstellar space. 847 ships materialized in perfect formation, a wall of metal and firepower that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Fleet Marshal Cavro stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, watching his tactical display with satisfaction. Every ship was in position. Every weapon was charged. This would be simple and quick. Scan the system, he ordered. Locate the human fleet. His tactical officer worked the controls and the display updated. 300 ships appeared in orbit around Earth, exactly where intelligence said they would be. They looked small and alone compared to the Council Armada. Marshal, the communications officer said, "The humans are hailing us." "Put it through," Cavro said. His forearms crossed confidently. Admiral Ryan Clark's face appeared on the screen. He looked old and tired, but his eyes were hard as stone. "Marshal Cavros, you have entered the Sol system with a hostile fleet. Turn back now, and no one needs to die today." Cavros laughed, the sound translated into something that made human ears hurt. "Admiral Clark, look at my fleet. 847 ships from 6 species. The might of the Galactic Council. You have 300 ships. Your weapons may be advanced, but you cannot overcome these numbers. Surrender now, and your world will be spared. Resist, and we will turn Earth to ash." Ryan's expression did not change. "Marshal, you made one critical mistake. You assumed we only have 300 ships." Cavros felt a flicker of concern. "Explain yourself, human." "You'll see," Ryan said, and the transmission ended. For a moment, nothing happened. The Council fleet hung in space, weapons ready, waiting for the humans to do something. Then Cavros's tactical officer shouted in alarm, "Marshal! New contacts! Hundreds of them! They're appearing all around us." The tactical display exploded with red icons. Ships materialized out of nothing, their stealth fields dropping simultaneously. Not 300 ships, not even 600. Over 2,000 vessels surrounded the Council fleet, appearing from every direction like ghosts becoming solid. Cavros stared at the display in horror. "Impossible! How did they hide that many ships? Our sensors, they should have detected something." On Earth, Director Helen Barnes watched from the command center beneath Colorado. She allowed herself a small smile. The stealth technology had worked perfectly. Humanity had spent 50 years developing it, creating ships that could hide from any sensor the Council possessed. "All ships," Admiral Ryan's voice came through every human vessel. "You have your targets. For Earth, for humanity. Fire." The space around Earth lit up like a newborn star. 2,000 human ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons designed for this single purpose. Overwhelming firepower. Marshal Cavros barely had time to give orders before his fleet was hit. Plasma railguns fired streams of superheated matter that melted through shields. Quantum torpedoes phased through armor and exploded inside hulls. Missile swarms launched by the thousands, each one guided by AI systems that could predict enemy movements. "All ships, return fire," Cavros roared. "Break formation and engage at will." The Council fleet fought back desperately. 800 ships turned their weapons on the humans, filling space with energy beams and projectiles. Some human vessels took hits. Shields flared and failed. Ships were damaged. But the difference in technology was crushing. Captain Lisa Morgan coordinated the battle from the Retribution with cold precision. Her mind processed 1,000 pieces of information every second, finding patterns in the chaos. "Second wave, target their command ships. Third wave, protect the orbital platforms. Fourth wave, cut off their retreat vector." Lieutenant Chris Palmer and his squadron dove into the battle like angels of death. His fighter moved so fast that regular humans would have been crushed by the forces. But his neural link and gel cocoon kept him alive as he performed maneuvers that seemed impossible. "Ghost 2, on your 6, he called to his wingman. "I see them, Ghost Leader." Breaking left. Chris fired a quantum torpedo at a Zentari cruiser. The weapon phased through its shields, appearing inside the ship's reactor room. The explosion tore the cruiser apart from the inside. On the surface of Earth, billions of people watched the battle on screens and holographic displays. They saw their ships fighting. They saw the Council fleet breaking apart. Some people cheered. Some cried. All of them felt pride. In the Grand Assembly Hall, President Nathan Wright stood with the other leaders watching the tactical feed. A Zentari destroyer broke through the human lines and fired at Earth. The shots hit the orbital defense platforms, massive stations that absorbed the damage, and returned fire with devastating force. The destroyer exploded. They're fighting for their homes, Nathan said quietly. Every pilot up there knows their families are watching. That's why we'll win. Marshal Cavro saw his fleet dying around him. Ships that had conquered worlds were being torn apart by human weapons. The coordination of the human fleet was perfect, like they were controlled by a single mind. He had never seen anything like it. Sir, we've lost over 300 ships, his tactical officer reported, fear clear in his voice. Their weapons, they're too powerful. Our shields can't stop them. Kavros made a decision he had never made before in his military career. All ships, emergency retreat. Jump to Rally Point Delta, we need to regroup. But even retreating was not simple. Human ships had positioned themselves to block the best jump vectors. Ships trying to escape were targeted first, cut down before they could activate their drives. Admiral Ryan watched the Council fleet breaking apart. They had fought for 6 hours and the result was clear. Humanity was winning, but the cost had been high. He had lost 43 ships, over 2,000 human lives. Each one was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. All ships, let them retreat, Ryan ordered. We've made our point. Target only ships that continue to attack. The surviving Council ships, less than half their original number, jumped away in ragged groups. Some were so damaged they barely made it. Others left their broken vessels behind, crews abandoning ship in escape pods that the humans recovered. The Second Battle of Sol was over. Humanity had won. In the aftermath, as rescue operations pulled survivors from wrecked ships and damage reports came in, Earth celebrated. The streets filled with people cheering, crying, holding each other. They had faced the might of the galaxy and survived. On Centrum Prime, the Galactic Council met in emergency session. The chamber was quiet now. No one was calling for war. No one was making threats. High Counselor Thane stood at the speaker's platform. We underestimated them, he said simply. We thought they were weak because they were silent. We thought they were broken because they hid. We were wrong about everything. Humanity is now the most powerful military force in this region of space. The question is, what do we do about it? Ambassador Korval of the Krelnor sat quietly now, his anger replaced by fear. Other ambassadors whispered among themselves. Some suggested peace. Others suggested alliance. A few still wanted revenge, but their voices were quiet. I propose a treaty, Thane said. We recognize Earth as a sovereign power. We offer them a seat on this council. We treat them as equals, not subjects, because the alternative is another war, and I do not think we would win it. The vote was close, but it passed. The council would offer peace. Admiral Ryan Clark received the council's message aboard the Retribution. He read it carefully, then transmitted his response. We appreciate the council's offer of recognition. We appreciate the seat on the council. But humanity will not join your government. Not yet. We will stand independent. We will make our own decisions. We will defend our territory and our interests. If you respect our sovereignty, we will respect yours. If you come in peace, you will find us peaceful. But if you come with threats, you will find us ready. The galaxy thought Earth was silent because we were afraid. You were wrong. We were silent because we were listening, learning, and preparing. Now you know what we are capable of. Remember it, the message ended. Across the galaxy, species that had ignored Earth for 300 years suddenly understood. Humanity was not a victim anymore. Humanity was a power. On Guardian's watch, Commander Jacob Price and Lieutenant Katie Sullivan stood at the observation deck, looking down at Earth. The planet looked peaceful from here, beautiful and blue, as if the battle had never happened. 300 years of silence, Katie said softly. And now everyone knows our name, Jacob smiled. Let's make sure they remember it for the right reasons. We're not conquerors. We're not tyrants. We're survivors who got tired of being victims. Down on Earth, in her office beneath Colorado, Director Helen Barnes shut down her computers for the first time in days. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the real work was just beginning. Building relationships with other species, expanding into the galaxy, making sure Earth never faced annihilation again. She looked at a photo on her desk. It showed Earth from space, taken 300 years ago before the first contact war. The planet looked the same now. But the humans living on it were completely different. We did it, she whispered to herself. We survived. We fought back. And we won. Lieutenant Chris Palmer landed his fighter on the Retribution's hangar deck. The Council fleet assembled at Rally Point Gamma, an empty section of space halfway between Centrum Prime and Earth. 847 ships from 6 different species gathered in formation, the largest military force seen in 200 years. Fleet Marshal Kavros commanded from his flagship, the Eternal Glory. He was Zentari, a species that had conquered 17 worlds through military might. His people were warriors bred for battle, and he had never lost a fight. Standing 8 feet tall with 4 arms and skin like dark metal, he looked every bit the conqueror. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. The translation device made the words sound flat, emotionless. Kavros stared at the tactical display showing Earth billions of miles away. A small blue world that had caused so much trouble. "Prepare for jump. We will arrive at their heliopause and give them one chance to surrender. If they refuse, we will demonstrate the Council's power." His second-in-command, a younger Zentari named Krell, looked at the intelligence reports. "Marshal, the human fleet only numbers 300 ships. Why do we need such overwhelming force?" Kavros's 4 eyes focused on his subordinate. "Because the Krellnor fleet was destroyed in 14 minutes. Because their weapons are unknown to us. Because pride has killed more soldiers than enemy fire. We bring 800 ships because we take no chances." On Earth, in the Grand Assembly Hall beneath what used to be Geneva, President Nathan Wright called an emergency session. The hall was enormous, carved from solid rock, with seats for 5,000 representatives from every nation and colony. Today, every seat was filled. Nathan was 54 years old with gray hair and a face that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. He had been president for 8 years, and every one of those years had been spent preparing for this moment. "Members of the Assembly," he began, his voice echoing through the chamber. "The Galactic Council has issued an ultimatum. They demand we surrender our fleet, submit to galactic law, and pay reparations for defending our territory. They have given us 72 hours to comply. If we refuse, they will send 800 warships to enforce their demand." The chamber erupted in voices. Some representatives shouted in anger. Others looked terrified. A few sat silently, their faces showing nothing. Director Helen Barnes stepped forward to the speaker's platform. The chamber quieted. Everyone knew who she was. The woman who had built humanity's sword. 300 years ago, Helen said, her voice cutting through the silence. "We were a peaceful species. We believed in diplomacy. We believed in trust. Then the galaxy showed us what happens to peaceful species. They get conquered. They get enslaved. They get erased." She activated the holographic display, and everyone saw what humanity had built in secret. Ships by the hundreds, weapons that could crack planets, defense systems that turned orbital space into a killing field, generation ships ready to evacuate billions if Earth fell. "We spent 300 years preparing," Helen continued. "Not preparing to surrender. Not preparing to beg. Preparing to fight. Preparing to win. The Council thinks 800 ships will break us. I think 800 ships won't be enough." A representative from South America stood up. "Director Barnes, even if we win this battle, we'll make enemies of the entire galaxy. 47 species will unite against us. How do we survive that?" Helen looked at him with cold eyes. "By being too dangerous to attack. By making them fear us more than they hate us. The galaxy respects one thing, strength. We've hidden long enough. It's time to show them what we are." The vote was called. Surrender or fight. When the count finished, it was unanimous. Every representative, from every nation, from every colony, voted to fight. President Nathan transmitted Earth's response to the Galactic Council personally. The message was recorded in 47 languages, translated by AI systems that understood every nuance of alien speech. "To the Galactic Council and all member species," Nathan said, standing in front of Earth's flag. "Humanity rejects your ultimatum. We reject your authority. We reject your right to dictate terms to a sovereign species. 300 years ago, you came to our world in peace and showed us war. You burned our cities and killed our people. We survived that, and we learned from it. You thought our silence was weakness. It was preparation. You thought Earth was broken. We were building. You send 800 ships to threaten us? Send 8,000. Send the entire galaxy. We will not surrender. We will not submit. This is our home, and we will defend it with everything we have. This is your only warning." The message ended with images from the Battle of the Kuiper Belt. Krellnor ships exploding, human vessels moving with impossible coordination, weapons that tore through shields like they were not there. The message was transmitted across every frequency, broadcast to every world. Within hours, trillions of beings across the galaxy had seen it. Reactions ranged from shock to fear to anger. But everyone agreed on one thing: humanity was no longer silent. On the Council fleet, Marshal Kavros watched the human message and felt something he had not felt in decades: doubt. The weapons in those recordings were advanced, far more advanced than standard galactic technology, but he had his orders. "Prepare for jump," he commanded. "We leave in 1 hour." Back on Earth, Admiral Ryan Clark coordinated the final defensive preparations. Every ship was in position. Every weapon system was tested and ready. The orbital defense platforms, massive stations bristling with railguns and missile pods, formed a web around the planet. Commander Jacob Price and Lieutenant Katie Sullivan stood in the command center of Guardian's Watch, watching the tactical displays. Katie's fingers flew across her console, running final checks on the defensive network. "All platforms report green status," she said. "Power at 100%. Targeting systems linked to the battle network. If they come at us, they'll have to go through 2,000 firing positions before they even reach the fleet." Jacob nodded, but his face was grim. 800 ships. "Even with our advantages, we're going to take losses. People are going to die." Katie looked at him. "Then we make sure their deaths count for something. We make sure Earth survives." Lieutenant Chris Palmer sat in his fighter on the Retribution's hangar deck. Around him, hundreds of other pilots made final checks on their craft. They were young, most of them, born after the First Contact War. They had grown up on stories of humanity's defeat and had trained their entire lives to make sure it never happened again. "Ghost Riders," Chris said over the squadron channel. "In a few hours, we're going to face the biggest fleet in galactic history. We're outnumbered 3-1. Our families, our friends, everyone we've ever loved is on the planet behind us. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to fly better than we've ever flown. We're going to fight harder than anyone has ever fought. And we're going to show the galaxy that humanity does not lose its home twice." 9 voices answered him with determination. On Centrum Prime, High Counselor Thane sat alone in his chambers watching the reports come in. The human message had been clear. They would not surrender. The mathematics said the Council fleet would win. 800 ships against 300. Superior numbers. Multiple species working together. But Thane remembered other battles, other wars, where the species with fewer numbers had won through superior technology and tactics. He remembered the fall of the Draxian Empire, destroyed by the Voidborn despite having 10 times as many ships. He remembered the Shatter Wars, where the Archons had lost 1/3 of their species to a supposedly primitive enemy. "Velthus," he called to his aide. "Send a message to Marshal Kavros. Tell him to be cautious. Tell him to scan for stealth ships. Tell him to assume the humans have more than they're showing." Velthus looked worried. "Counselor, the Marshal does not take advice well. He may see it as questioning his authority." "I don't care how he sees it," Thane said. "I care that he understands the danger. 300 years of silence. 300 years of building. What could a species accomplish with that much time and motivation? What if we're not attacking a weak enemy? What if we're attacking something we don't understand?" The aide left to send the message. Thane remained in his chambers, looking at the recordings of human ships. They moved like nothing he had seen before. Perfect coordination, devastating firepower, and something else, something harder to define. They moved like they were angry. The Council fleet jumped toward Earth. 847 ships tore through space, crossing light years in hours. They came with confidence, with pride, with the certainty that numbers would win. They had no idea what was waiting for them.